So, if you know anything about the Nazis or socialism, then you know obviously the Nazis weren't socialists. But every once in a while, some big influencer, somebody will come out and say, oh, the Nazis were socialists, always coming from the right, those geniuses. Um, but I mean, besides just being dumb, I mean, there's a few things that even people that know that's just dumb tend to overlook, which kind of proves pretty emphatically that the Nazis were not socialists, even if it is National Socialist German Workers' Party. Just because it's in the name doesn't mean it's in there. Uh, so primarily, one of the big things that gets overlooked is that one, when Hitler joined the Nazi Party, they were the German Workers' Party, and he didn't join them because he was a big supporter of the German Workers' Party. After World War One, Hitler joined military intelligence. So he was sent undercover to spy on this group. And that was a big thing going on then. That's kind of where a lot of that originates here, because after World War II, the FBI brought over a bunch of Nazi military intelligence, and that's when they started running all those programs doing the same thing against like leftists and minority, primarily black organizations. Um, But yeah, so Hitler was part of military intelligence when he joined the German Workers' Party. He didn't join out of some kind of ideological, um, support for what the group was representing. Although there was at that time, that already strong, they were the German Workers' Party. They were very much pro-worker, but pro-German workers. Uh, So that kind of racist, xenophobic part was there when he joined already. And there were socialists in the party. Even some of the founders were socialists. Um, but it was kind of a big tent party. It was a workers' rights kind of party. So there were even more conservative people in there. But it kind of, again, big tent. It was a mixed bag. Um, So when Hitler joined as part of military intelligence, again, that was just part of the program going on. They were spying on all of these leftists and trade unionists, and especially with what was going on in Russia with the communists taking over. The German military was very afraid something like that would happen in Germany, because lots of leftist German thinkers, lots just yeah. So that there was fertile ground in Germany at the time for socialism and communism, uh, and trade unions were gaining popularity, stuff like that. That basically workers' rights, the poor people were starting to um, work together. I mean, again, the German Workers' Party, even though they were xenophobic, they were still bringing together people of different kind of ideologies over that the workers' rights. But anyway, so that's why Hitler was sent to spy on them. Um, and then, of course, he kind of ingrained himself in the party. By the time he became chancellor, he had full control over the party. And again, another step most people miss when going from, that pre-Hitler as chancellor to post um, that appointment is that um, the Night of the Long Knives, where, Hitler was basically ordered by the military. Basically, what they said was, we will back your appointment as chancellor, but, you know, get rid of the socialists in your party. And he did. And that was even the founding members that were socialist or left leaning, the head of the brown shirts, even, who was probably Hitler's biggest believer and would have literally died for him. Hitler had him killed because that was part of the agreement. He had no loyalty to anybody. He definitely didn't have any loyalty to the ideology. Um, so, yeah, I mean, even though they did vote at one point to change their name to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, Hitler was against that name change, and he had no loyalty or any kind of, you know, ideological, attachment really even to the party other than Germans first. Um, and really, but again, he was a mole, he was a spy, and he was, again, taking orders from the military. It was the military that, um, in the end, caused the Night of the Long Knives, where the Nazi Party went through and just kind of exterminated any left-leaning member of their party, even the founders. Um, so any that didn't flee the country were dead. And because of that, then Hitler gets to be chancellor. And at that point going forward, the Nazi Party is basically the Hitler Party. So there's no longer, votes on things. There's no longer, anything real. It's basically Hitler running everything. So the fact that socialist is in their name is kind of meaningless because, once Hitler took power, there were no socialists left in the party. And again, like, they were never really, I would even say, that socialist, though there were socialists within it. But still, post Hitler's appointment as chancellor, there is nothing resembling socialism in the German Workers' Party, which they proved when, they started doing very fascist things, which is very anti-socialist things, like rounding up and murdering socialist leaders within the populace in general, killing trade unionists and arresting them. And so, and then again, like, socialism by definition is when the people who do the actual work own the means of production. And there is nothing more antithetical to that than a concentration camp where you force a group of people to do the work. They don't own anything. Like, they owned nothing. Everything was taken from them. They go to these concentration camps, which were, by the way, run by the Nazis, but run for businesses that were working with the Nazis, like Ford and later Volkswagen, like IBM, IG Farben, all these different groups that worked with the Nazis. That's why they were running these labor camps, was to provide free labor to these companies. So obviously, that's about as far from socialism as you can get, because the workers were owned by the company. It's the opposite. It's not the workers owning the means of production. The people who own the means of production also own the workers. Uh, so, I mean, it's just ridiculous to even suggest that the Nazis were actually socialist in any way. And that's not even bringing in the, when you add national socialist, national socialist and a socialist, not the same thing, but still, even beyond that, there was zero socialism going on within the Nazi Party. Um, and that kind of brings us to how Elon is actually a Nazi. He's very, very fascist. And one of probably the only good thing Mussolini ever did in his entire life um, was provide a very apt and clear definition of what a fascist is and what fascism is. And that's, corporatism. When corporations run the government, you have fascism. And so a fascist is somebody who facilitates that or is one of those corporate heads that are also running the government. Um, which, I mean, again, like, so what is Elon doing? Oh, he's advising, whatever. He's eliminating entire swaths of the government and being, um, again, as a corporate head. I mean, he's literally the head of like 4 different corporations, um, who has always held an extreme amount of influence over the government and has used his money and his position as a jobs provider to influence government policy and to get grants and tax breaks and more grants. The dude gets so much money from the government, it's ridiculous. Um, but even with all that, his businesses are still kind of garbage because he doesn't know what he's doing. Anyway, but that's separate. So by definition, really, of what a fascist is in practice, an actual, fascist doing fascist things, like it really doesn't get more fascist than Elon Musk doing what Elon Musk has been doing since like January 20th. I mean, it's literally the definition of fascism as put forth by Mussolini. And, if you really break down how Germany ran under Hitler, um, you'll see that, I mean, this is pretty much it. I mean, again, like people say, well, the Nazis ran concentration camps. And so, but they ran them for corporations. Again, that was for corporate profit. It was not, well, I'm not going to confuse the issue, but anyway, um, and so those companies with heavy government influence, which the government was very easy to influence, like you could easily bribe, different members of the Nazi Party to get rules changed, and those companies that went kind of all in backing the Nazis, as you see now, where companies are going all in to kind of try to buy favor with Trump and with Elon. Um, they're hoping to get the same kind of results where, the Nazis eliminated their competition. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's straight up fascism. It's not even debatable anymore. Um, so thinking of Nazis just as the guys that were walking down the street or the prison guards, I mean, I should say goose stepping down the street, whatever. But Nazis weren't just the prison guards; they were primarily the business leaders. I mean, that's what really made up uh, what the Nazis were, and that kind of dictated a lot what the Nazis did, uh, because they were controlled by these corporate heads. And if you see, even after the fall of the Nazis, like on Eastern Germany, those companies kind of pretty much ceased to exist. They were crushed or pushed out by the communists, who were very anti-fascist. And then, but in Western Germany, uh, the companies that really went hard back in the Nazis stayed in power. Like they kept all their influence. Even though maybe they didn't directly run the government anymore, they didn't have direct access to just simply bribe the right person and get the policy changed. They still, the same way that corporations have been influencing the U.S. government for decades and decades, they still had that kind of influence. They were not closed down. They were not really fined in any significant way. They were just allowed to take those profits and move on business as usual, um, and have undue influence in the government. So, because honestly, really, while the Nazis lost and, World War II, fascism won. I mean, because it wasn't even, you know, freedom versus fascism. It was communism over here, fascism over here, fighting fascism in the middle. Like the aggressive, cancerous fascism that was the Nazis. You have this slow burn, kind of behind the scenes building fascism that, has been historically and rightly proven over and over again was the huge influence. In a way, a lot of the Western companies, a lot of the companies that were influencing the US government during World War II, prior to World War II, and during then, they were the same ones backing the Nazis in Europe, because this was like a testing ground for them. That if Hitler succeeded, they would benefit. Um, but once it became clear he was not, of course, then they, made as much profit as they could and then said, well, screw you guys, we're out of here. But yeah, but they stayed in power in the West, just like the companies that were operating the factories in the concentration camps kept going after World War II. The concentration camps may have been closed down, but the companies were still there. They still had influence in Western Germany. You know, they also still had influence in the U.S. because a lot of them were U.S. companies. Uh, and beyond that, a lot of them, because of the profits they made, became international companies and again started having more influence in the U.S. But yeah, basically, and I know I kind of lost the track of Elon being a fascist, but I mean, his entire career, pretty much, like if you look at what he's been doing to manipulate the US government in his favor, even going so far as to move headquarters to Texas, where it's more favorable for him and he has more direct influence because it's so much easier to just, practically bribe your government officials in Texas, to get your way, and they're so used to it there that they're more open to people like Elon Musk having that influence. But then now you see he's also pulled that up to the federal level, and the things that businesses were kind of doing quietly behind the scenes to influence policy and stuff. Now they it's become that rapid growth, cancerous form of fascism, just like it was in Nazi Germany. And it's Well, not identical though. That's why. I mean, they're not stupid. They're not going to put on swastikas or, although he did Sieg Heil. I mean, what the fuck? And a lot of people were like, oh, his supporters, were like, he's trolling the left. He's intentionally trying to upset the libs and trolling the left. And no, I mean, that's not what he was doing. I mean, he was literally doing a Sieg Heil. Um, and there he was trolling, but what he was trolling was his own supporters, basically saying, I can stand up here on stage at a political rally. I think it was even like the inauguration celebration, So again, but this big political rally celebration, um, and I can get up here and basically say, I'm a Nazi. And you idiots will still support me. You will make the excuses for me. I won't have to apologize. I won't have to make excuses for it. I can shove it in your face that I'm a Nazi, and you will get on social media and you will go in the media and make excuses for why. Oh no, that was just his heart going out to us. That wasn't. No, it was literally about it was a practiced and very firm lock in the elbow, palm down, Nazi salute. And he rubbed it in their faces that he's a Nazi, and they are still like little cowardly babies, because they want their scraps. That's anyway. So yes, the Nazis definitely not socialists. Never were. Even though in the beginning, yes, there was some socialist influence within the Nazi Party, um, but by the time Hitler took power, that was gone. They were dead. So yeah, definitely stomped out. Elon Musk, absolutely a fascist. Very much in the vein of Nazi Germany fascist too, not just the, fash. Anyway, so that's all. Thank you for listening. Bye.